Hey, welcome back. Today we have a few bits of news. Only one bit really about any new releases. But yeah, there's some cool stuff going on. So we're going to get through it. As always, if you'd like to keep up with the news, then hit a subscribe. That's awesome. If not, then we're happy to have you anyway. Right, first bit of news is, this is a new release, but it's not that interesting for Earthquaker. It's a little bit weird. It's a triangle muff, so it's a 3-knob fuzz based on the best muff that there is, which is the triangle muff, and it was for an artist, a Japanese alt rock artist, and I'm looking at my screen now because for the pronunciation, Hitsumitas. It's a triangle muff. Looks nice, got little bunnies on it. They did a limited edition version of it as well. It's not much more to say about that. Nobels have released a new version of the OD1, which is a limited version, and it's in green sparkle. I mean, honestly, is this news? Mike from Analog Man posted up some pictures of smashed Analog Man cases because there was a company in, I'm guessing China by looks of things, that were selling a King of Tone alike, but when he sent them out, they were actually direct clones in terms of all the artwork and everything were exactly the same. And it looks like the import people, the border people, have been getting hold of them and smashing them up with hammers. So yeah, that's aggressive. But like we said last week, Joyo are doing a clone now, aren't they? And if you're going to have to wait 4 years on a waiting list to get a pedal, clones are going to pop about. They will. But what can we say? Shouldn't just rip a man off. It's hard. It is a hard one to toss up. Anyway, moving on from that, we spoke about Tom Majeski and where he was going to go from TateFX. We said it might be Chase Bliss, and guess what? We were right. Yes, he has joined Chase Bliss. No more news on that, really. Yeah, it's just he has joined them. Can't wait to see what he's done. We're going to get round to the Boss FZ-1 in a minute, but there was another release coming out of the Roland camp this week, and it is not a calculator. It looks an awful lot like a calculator. It really does. It's even got like numbers on it. It is a 404 creative sampler and effector. SP404 Mark II to be precise. And I'm literally only mentioning it because it looks like a calculator. It's really cool though. It's got a little OLED display in it and stuff. Yeah, it's not the sort of thing that I think I would use. Probably because I wouldn't know how to use it. Very much like a scientific calculator. So, yeah, that's cool. Right, let's talk about the news that you want to know about. Okay, Boss FZ-1W. So we've been working on this for a little while before the release, and that's because over at Tonepedia we've had the units for quite some time in order to create the interactive demo, and I'll link that below so you can go and try it. We've been editing videos for it and so on and so forth. It is pretty bloody cool. What is interesting about this is all of the Wazercraft pedals have been replicas of existing pedals. Even the TB2W, that's the only one that hasn't been a replica of an existing Boss pedal, but all of the others have been replicas of like the CE2 and the Dimension C and so on and so forth. This is not a replica of any existing Boss pedal, and it is not a replica of the old Maestro FZ1, which is the fuzz that you hear on Rolling Stone's Satisfaction. This is an FZ-1W called FZ-1 because you've got the FZ-2, which is very famous, and this isn't a replica of that. Otherwise, they probably would have called it an FZ-2. This is a completely different take on it. So you've got 3 knobs, okay, just like you have on most fuzzes, level, tone and fuzz. Then you've got vintage and modern. The vintage and modern switch does a lot. Okay, so in vintage, this has very little sustain. It has that kind of crapping out sound, so it goes like a really good splurty fuzz, almost like with the bias, but there isn't a bias control on this. But you know when you starve it a little bit on the bias. However, the modern mode has tons of sustain and a lot more mid-range. Also, the tone knob reacts very, very, very differently. So in modern mode, no matter where you put the tone, there's a ton of mid-range. But on the vintage mode, when you move the tone around, you end up scooping the mids as well. So you end up with like very much lots of treble, very much lots of bass, and it's very, very cool. I love the way that the entire pedal changes. Yet, and this is the really interesting part, it still sounds like the same pedal when you switch from one to the other. So it doesn't sound like it's going from a fuzz face to a big muff or something like that. It's still quite obviously very, I think it's very fuzz face orientated, and it's still very obviously that flavour, even if it's in modern mode. But at the same time, they're very different. It's quite interesting, it really is. Go and have a look at the videos that we've done and over at Tonepedia, and have a look at the interactive player, because you're not going to get a better feel for it than there unless you get it in your hands. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. I'm when I was told that there was a new Boss Fuzz and it wasn't a remake of the FZ-2, I was like, yes, great. But this is actually pretty bloody cool. It really is. So yeah, very, very, very cool. But that is it. That's it. That's the news. No more, no less. But there will be more next week. Actually, there might not be. So I'm going to have a word with the chaps and see if someone can stand in for me. But if not, there will be no news next week. That's because I am doing something quite exciting and I'm not allowed to tell you about it. Anyway, I will see you all the week after. Bye-bye.